Hi everyone, this is Gary Berman, host of the Cyber Hero Adventure Show, coming to you from Reagan International Airport. So if you hear some announcements, that's what that is. And we have a very, very special briefing today with Dr. Georgianna Shea, who's going to share with us some of the key takeaways from an amazing event. Georgianna, or also George, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for taking time before your flight. It was delayed, so that actually worked well for our audience, but I'm sorry it was delayed. But let's just kind of like jump right into this. When I first learned about the report to the president, it's entitled "The Strategy for Cyber Physical Resilience." There's going to be a link so that you can download a PDF version of it. I thought, wow, this is really pretty amazing. And the reason I thought that it was amazing is how, with 27 other colleagues, some of the smartest people in the world about all of this, stuff, first of all, got together on a singular mission of the linkage between, cyber and physical security. And so, tell us, what was the genesis of this initiative?
Well, so it's really cyber physical systems, security and resilience. The cyber physical systems is both information technology and operational technologies. So it goes beyond just your ones and zeros. It's the machineries that are run by software and hardware. So there's a kinetic output to what the ones and zeros are saying. And then the resilience aspect of that is ensuring that there's continued operations during the face of adversity. So whether that's a cyber attack or a natural disaster, a supply chain disruption, human error, whatever. When you look at the critical infrastructure and supplying water, electricity, health services, those kind of things can't withstand a disruption. We need to continue operations. So we're focusing on the resilience of those machine and IT pieces, IT, OT, cyber physical systems that enable those kind of capabilities.
In the opening letter that you wrote that you collectively wrote, to the president, you cited, for example, the Colonial Pipeline attack, and just the notion of water and things like that. To the larger audience, folks who are not in cybersecurity, one of the challenges is how do you cascade this information that can be very complex into something that people will understand and that it does impact their lives, like being able to drink water, or get gasoline or buy meat at a store, just as some examples.
Yeah, so we have 16 sectors of critical infrastructure, and those are those critical things that we can't live without as a nation. Energy, water, manufacturing,
finance,
Department of Defense, the Defense Industrial Base. There's 16 sectors, and all of these sectors rely on those information technology, operational technology, combo, cyber physical systems that do things that enable our everyday life that we may not understand. Like drink water, have electricity. So the paper really focuses on ensuring that we continue to have those necessities every single day.
I think one of the major takeaways from the event that you also talk about in the report, is this notion of accountability, and so what is I think the word was minimum viable.
Minimal viable objectives or performance goals or products and services. Yes. So
can you help our audience understand that?
Yeah. So every sector, the recommendation is that every sector should have minimal viable objectives. So, for example, in the water sector, that might be no more than X people will go without water for X amount of days.
Right.
X amount of water with X amount of days. Right now, we don't have those type of minimal viable objectives for every sector. The objective is have water. So once you identify what those goals are, those objectives, those minimal viable requirements for that sector, then you can start sort of reverse engineering the requirements to ensure that happens.
In terms of resilience and recovery.
In terms of resilience, recovery, identifying those critical systems, knowing the indications of risk with those critical systems, and ensuring that, let's just say, for example, you have, the example I use is the DeLorean, just so people kind of understand it. If you have the Back to the Future DeLorean, you've got tires and you've got a flux capacitor. if a tire goes out, okay, no big deal. You can kind of patch it. But if the flux capacitor goes out, that's a lot bigger deal.
Indeed.
So if you're talking about the flux capacitor of water, the flux capacitor of energy, the flux capacitor of manufacturing, what does that mean in terms of getting that back up and running and getting the water, electricity, gasoline to the people again?
And just to build on that, I mean, this is a massive sort of initiative, across almost everything in American life, from day-to-day things. How do you prioritize, how to allocate your resources? Do you have appropriate resources from the government? I know its budgets have just recently been released. What's your assessment of all that, if you can say that, publicly?
Well, I think that's out of my scope. My scope is the identifying those issues and giving the recommendations, and then it's up to the sector to identify what their priorities are. So prioritizing their functions, their critical functions, and then identifying those critical technologies, what their mission is, and what they need to ensure that they're producing that minimal viable product or service. So it's not to me to prioritize. It's up to them and their mission.
Indeed. And one of the interesting things I took away from yesterday's discussion was the threat actors, whether they be nation states or criminals or gangs or
tornado. Or tornado. So it's all
yeah,
resilience.
of course,
so
not just cyber,
or hurricane, or
which happens a lot.
Yes.
It happened in Houston. You actually
Right.
talked about that in your report. Yeah, thank you. My focus is generally on cyber, but it's important to open the aperture.
Yeah, I always
It's risk.
The distinction between the cybersecurity piece of this and the resilience piece, because a lot of folks will try to paint a solution brush through cybersecurity, and I tell them, well, no. You're still not addressing the
good
issue.
point. Yeah, for sure.
Cyber really focuses on keeping the adversary out of your systems, and we're really focused on, if it's a cyber issue, they're in your system. So how do you continue to do your business?
Well, so one of the other things that came from the meeting, and it's in your report, was this notion of an observatory. I can't remember if it was Phil or Eric who brought that up.
I don't remember. I think.
But it's a notion of
it's one of our recommendations.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So a National Cyber Observatory, which is in essence a digital twin of our critical infrastructure, so that we can understand how we look, what our posture is, what our weaknesses are, what our strengths are, what our interdependencies are, so that we actually know our systems and our strengths and weaknesses, vulnerabilities better than our adversaries. And I bring this up specifically on the cyber side with people because if you were to do, let's say, penetration testing, you find your penetration testers, you give them information about your organization, and they may have a month, maybe 2 months to do their homework to figure out how they're going to break into your system. But when you look at real world activity, our adversary, we'll say the hacking department of China, they're not spending a month to get ready to break into your system. They're spending years looking at your system. So they pretty much know our systems better than we do, because we don't spend that level of effort understanding where our security strengths and weaknesses are.
Dr. Georgianna Shea at fdd.org. And as I said, we'll have a place that people can download the report. On behalf of a grateful digital universe, thanks for who you are and for what you do, and most importantly, why you do it.
Thank you.